Hello, fabulous friends and fans of Kaipacha. I am Nadiya Shah. Thank you so much for being here. And I do want to, first of all, right out of the gate, extend my love and gratitude to Kaipacha for hosting me on his channel. I will be at astrologyrisingcostarica.com with Kaipacha and some of the most amazing astrologers alive on this planet today. It really is such a privilege, such a blessing, and I'm really looking forward to it. And so thank you, Kaipacha, for hosting this video about Saturn in Aquarius on your channel. And the full version of this video is available on my own channel, nadiyashah.com, and I hope that you enjoy. Thank you. As I am beginning to record this video, there's a lot going on in the world right now, and I want to talk about what's happening in the immediacy, certainly, but also in terms of the larger implications, because this really is an important turning point for us as a collective. And because we as individuals are part of the collective, we individually will be feeling a shift as well. There are times when we move into an energy and we ease into it. And then there are times when the universe makes it very clear we are in brand new waters. And in this case, the brand new airy waters of Aquarius are being highlighted here, and we will be right in it right away. And so some of the things that are happening now as I'm recording this video is, of course, the fear and the uncertainty because of COVID-19. And it is strangely a unifying force for us. It is reminding us of our interconnection to each other, to everyone and everything, the seemingly invisible ways in which we are reliant on each other. And what does that reliance really come down to? Well, my belief is that it comes down to love, the desire to be loved and our love for each other. But the energy of Aquarius is rather impersonal. It is loving in its own way. But there's a reason why the energy of Aquarius is thought to be detached. It is one of these universal things we know about ourselves, whether it is philosophers or spiritual teachers who have reminded us that it is in our thoughts that we are free. In fact, it can be said that our thoughts are the only place where we truly are free. There can be so many other external limitations placed on us, but within our own minds, within our mind's eye, we really can take flight. We can be where it is that we desire. We can go where it is that we desire, and we can think what it is that we want, free from the judgment of others. It is a work, actually, by Carl Jung called Eon. And even though this was written way back in 1951, it is in this collected works of Carl Jung that he talks about how it is that people are already talking about the Age of Aquarius, like they're looking forward to this. We know that this dawning, as they call it, the dawning of the Age of Aquarius, that we were already on that precipice way back in the early 50s. He speaks about the Age of Aquarius in the context of the Age of Pisces. And if you look at the glyph of Pisces, much like the glyph of Aquarius, there is this strong sense of mirroring that happens there. However, with Pisces, there's a line that connects them. It looks like two crescents connected by a line, sort of like an H. And so even though there is that duality to it, there's still a connection. And what we saw during the Age of Pisces was this sense of the what we call Christ consciousness, what we call Buddha energy, right? This idea of compassion and the oneness and the bliss of the divine. But it has a flip side as well, right? It had the idea of false prophets, the idea of delusion, the idea of hope leading to loss. As much as faith can strengthen us, connect us to what really matters, it is faith that doesn't question itself that is not healthy. Faith is healthy when it questions itself. But in its higher understanding, the energy of Pisces is one of compassion and love and easing pain. It is one of healing. So now we come to the energy of Aquarius, and like Pisces, it has a strong duality to it as well. And it is this duality that is evoked in its glyph. It's two waves. They mirror each other. They are identical, and they don't touch each other. And so, in the same way that the energy of Aquarius can be about community, it is also highly individualistic. We think of the energy of Aquarius as connected to technology, and it absolutely is. You think about the digital sphere, that is all air. It is all concept and electricity and thought that comes together to create a reality that we see on our computers and in our media. But at the same time, it's not real, right? Yes, the digital sphere, what we see on our computer screens and on our phones, it feels and seems like a very real experience, but it is virtual in its very nature. The very nature of Saturn being one of restriction, we are being asked, more of us on the planet are being asked to restrict ourselves from each other. This to me is social distancing, right? That's the key word that's coming up as we are in the middle of March of 2020. Now, when I said that we would step into the energy of Saturn and Aquarius and we would be in it right away, that is because of Mars. So on the 22nd of March is when, for most it'll be the 22nd, it might be right around the 21st for some people out there, depending on where you are on the planet. Well, that is when Saturn moves into the sign of Aquarius officially, and will be here until July 1st before retrograding back into Capricorn, kind of wrap things up there with those larger themes that I already spoke about in the Saturn in Capricorn special horoscope. You can see that online. And then it will be in the middle of December that Saturn will return to the sign of Aquarius for a much longer stay. Now that'll be a different energy when we get there. So I'll talk about that in just a moment, but let's talk about this first energy. March 22nd, Saturn moves into the sign of Aquarius. We're already feeling this coming, right? As a collective, as we're being asked to distance ourselves from each other. We're being asked to work from home, more and more people, which relies on the internet, which relies on being interconnected, maintaining those connections to others, and yet being separate, yet being individuals and individualistic, to be with ourselves and to find a sense of stillness and maybe even find a creative spark within that. So then we move forward, and it is going to be at the end of March that Mars moves into the sign of Aquarius and immediately connects with Saturn on the 31st of March. This is a powerful connection. These two planets get together about once every 2 years or so. And when they do get together, for some, this is a stark moment, rooted normally in honesty, seeing things in a bare and fundamental and essential way. But I also think of this energy as associated with individuality and sacrifice. Both of these energies are highly individualistic. Mars and Saturn, by their very nature. Saturn in Aquarius, the independence of thought and the way that thoughts work together in your mind. And then we have Mars, which in and of itself, if you look at the glyph of Mars, it speaks powerfully to the individual. The glyph of Mars has the circle of wholeness, right? That is the individual. That is a containment, you being a contained being in and of yourself. And the arrow that emerges from Mars is acting from that place of wholeness. In its higher understanding, it is a place of self-knowledge. But again, it is on its own, what you feel, what you're feeling about who you are, what your truth is, that is a deeply personal and deeply individual thing. And so how is that now going to shape your behavior? And Saturn having to do with sacrifice. It is a planet that speaks to the archetype of sacrifice, knowing what's worth sacrificing for, understanding the long-term picture, understanding the consequences of your actions, understanding that when you sacrifice now, there can be greater rewards in the fullness of time. But Mars has a lot of immediacy to it. It's impulsive as an energy. And so these two planets get together and it asks us to direct our impulsiveness, our truth, our sense of self consciously, to direct our minds consciously, and to understand viscerally, because Mars is a very visceral energy, to understand to the core of our being what is worth sacrificing for and what sacrifices we're going to make so that we can be ourselves, true to ourselves, but also for the collective and for each other. It is going to be this moment that is not only about this moment of Mars meeting Saturn and how that fits into where we are right now in terms of COVID-19, in terms of our understanding of humanity, in terms of our understanding of our connection to each other and how we utilize technology, how technology allows us to be not only more of ourselves, but to be more on our own, which is another way of being ourselves. But it will also point the way to very clearly what different ways of understanding the age of Aquarius could be for us. And so with the Aquarian energy, going back to Carl Jung, because he talked about the duality, and what I find really interesting with the Aquarian energy is that it does on one hand speak to inner authority, and that's why it has a connection to the New Age movement. Even though when we look at the New Age movement, when that happened, when that really arose as a cultural force, that was the discovery of Neptune. But it is the Aquarian energy that sets the stage for that, the discovery of Uranus that sets the stage for that, because it relies on inner authority, right? If you believe the divine is within you, that's basically inner authority, that self-trust that involves. And I think that that is part of why astrology for some is seen as an Aquarian endeavor. Astrology just is, the sky just is, right? You bring yourself to the sky and it is going to be whatever it is that you need it to be. You can't have astrology without the astrologer. When you hear an interpretation of an astrologer, what you're hearing is what they believe. That's it, what their worldview is, their philosophies, what they believe about themselves, what they believe about the inherent nature of people. That's what they reveal to you, because the sky just is. It's the interpretation that allows astrology to be. And so different astrologies and different astrologers will approach the sky and their astrological practice in different ways, and many will approach it from an Aquarian space where it comes to that sense of inner authority and self-trust and bringing art into it, but also having that connection to its scientific roots. That ability to interpret what is happening in our external environment to our more personal experience, that is called the symbolic mind. And that is something that astrology relies on. It relies on us viewing the sky from a symbolic mind. But up until the discovery of Uranus, you saw a flock of birds. It meant something. It spoke of something spiritual or personal. And then the discovery of Uranus and the Age of Enlightenment said it's all just stuff. It doesn't mean anything. It doesn't have to mean anything spiritual. And so then that left a void, which led to the discovery of Neptune, which was then the hyper spiritualism of that time, and so on. And so I share this with you now because as Mars meets Saturn, this is going to be a harbinger of sorts. But here's the opportunity. Here's the amazing thing. We get to decide what it's going to mean. We get to decide what part of that Age of Aquarius we are going to magnify, because this is an energy that is so individualistic. It means the individual is strong. Our individual power is strong. And I believe, and as I affirm in my work, is that we can decide that our power is going to be rooted in love and wisdom. We can decide we are going to bring forward that part of the Age of Aquarius that has to do with peace and unity and all those beautiful attributes. But a part of that may require healthy detachment. A part of that may require a healthy sense of oneself and of being with oneself. But then the next big thing to happen, right? So far I've talked about, how consequential it can be, how dire it can be. I get it, okay? But actually, the Age of Aquarius could be really amazing. It can be really, really good. It holds freedom and equality and connection to others that doesn't necessarily rely on things like borders and where you physically are. And that can give us that much more a sense of honoring one of the very basic needs we have as human beings, which is to know ourselves as connected to others. We know ourselves by seeing ourselves in others. We need representation, right? This is something that people talk about a lot in terms of, for example, media, how important a variety of media representation is. Because you know yourself when you see yourself. And we know ourselves when we have our tribe, when we know our people. It is going to be in mid-December that Saturn will move back into the sign of Aquarius. And it will be the winter solstice, the 21st or the 22nd, depending on where you are on the planet. Well, that is when not only will Saturn be here at the very beginning of the sign of Aquarius, but that is when Jupiter moves into the sign of Aquarius and these two planets meet. This is an incredibly important moment, not only for Saturn in the sign of Aquarius, but for humanity, for all of us. Now, I actually did a whole talk on what's called the Great Conjunction, and I presented this talk in January in Florida and in New York City at the New York Theosophical Society. And we spoke about the history of the Great Conjunction, as the ancients called it. And so the Great Conjunction is when Jupiter and Saturn meet in the sky. They meet every 20 years. Now, Kepler actually did a whole lot of work on this, what he called trigon. And he made this connection between how these great conjunctions actually tend to stick in a certain element over a period of a couple of centuries. They tend to magnify that particular element. It's as if we as humanity focus in on manifesting as much as we can. And so it was during from the mid 1500s right into the 1700s that we had some water, but mostly fire emphasized every 20 years with the Great Conjunction. And this was a time of discovery, right? This was the Americas. This was us going out and conquering the world, and the conquistadors feeling like they were, spiritually inspired and blessed to conquer cultures and lands and convert them. This was fire and water merging together at this time. And it is Saturn and Jupiter meeting that denote turning points for humanity. Something beginning, a seed that ultimately changes the world. It was and has been for the better part of the last 2 centuries that most of these great conjunctions have taken place in earth signs. And so you think about what has happened over the last, better part of the last 200 years. A lot of industry, right? This rise of, we can say capitalism, we can say this sense of people being empowered materially, right? Buildings have gone up. This is all very earth related. The physical things that we've manifested, the ways in which our structures around money have changed and power have changed. It was in 1981 that the energy started to change as the Great Conjunction, as it's called, took place in an air sign for the first time in centuries. And this was the energy of Libra. And throughout 1991, it was this Great Conjunction that perfected 3 times. And this denoted big changes for us in partnerships and relationships, but also you think about this as air energy. And air is communication, it is technology. And this is the mobile phone being invented at that time. And that has been a world-changing force that we feel today with the smartphone. It started then with cellular technology that allowed us one-on-one to be able to communicate with others. It took what otherwise would have been fantasy and grounded it and made it real. In the year 2000, the Great Conjunction occurred in the sign of Taurus. So what happened at that time? Well, that was the beginning of a brand new economy, a brand new way to do commerce, all very Taurian things, right? So now we're here, and it is going to be starting in 2020 at the winter solstice that the energy becomes air right to the end of the century and into the next. It becomes that these great conjunctions that are going to take place will be happening in air signs. It starts with Aquarius now at the end of this year. And the next time that this great conjunction occurs in the energy of Aquarius will be 2080. So for many of us, this is going to be the only time in our lifetime that we will see this. But of course, the sky is different now. And what's different is that not only is it going to be Jupiter and Saturn meeting, but that Pluto is coming up. So let's come back to Jupiter and Saturn. This to me is showing us that actually the age of Aquarius can be really good. We can be connected, and that there are whole new ways that might not have even been invented yet for us to be connected to each other. And I was thinking about the fact that this great conjunction is going to be coming up. And right now where Mars is meeting Saturn, and it is about limitation and also elimination. It is Jupiter and Saturn that are about the new and the next and what's exciting and what could be and what we could hope for. Well, I actually think that the fact that we're being asked to be isolated, work online, be connected more through the internet, I think that in March, that's going to show its limitations. There may be some technology issues that pop up that need to be resolved, but ultimately it is necessary so that we can get to that place in December when the new technologies arise, new ways of us being independent and yet being interconnected start to show up for us. Brand new technologies, brand new modalities are going to start to show up for us. And because it is happening on a winter solstice, right? You think about the winter solstice, it's decidedly quiet. It's the darkest night, the longest night of the year. And it is from here that the sun is considered reborn. This is, goes back to ancient mythologies. We see this again and again. The winter solstice associated with rebirth. And so that to me says that there is a rebirth happening at that time. And it'll be that much more rooted in consciousness. It'll be that much more rooted in ideas. And then we enter 2021, and that is when Saturn is going to start connecting with Uranus. That's going to be really interesting for us. The ancient ruling planet of Aquarius and the modern ruling planet of Aquarius communicating. So consider this. We have this square aspect, these conversations of tension. There is tension between the old and the new here. Anytime Saturn and Uranus square each other, that tension is indicated between the old and the new. But this is the old and the new in terms of ideas, the old and the new in terms of our connection between the individual and the collective. The older ways of understanding community are going to be shifting now. The older ways of using technology and the limitations there are now going to be asked to be transformed in favor of prosperity and new ways of going about doing prosperity. Now, the ancients said that where it comes to a planet, the further out a planet is, the slower moving a planet is, the more powerful it is. And so in that conversation between Saturn and Uranus, Uranus is going to win. The future will always win. Progress will always win. But here it is that we are going to see some challenge in ideas, some challenge in understanding what ideas are going to change the world, what are going to rule the world, and how is the world going to change now? How is it that more traditional ways are feeling threatened by that? But also, where is it now that we may be desiring to understand the collective differently, more expansively than we had before, and the collective will. But it's a necessary part of the process. And in our own personal journeys, us as well, we are going to be looking at how is it that we can integrate these energies? How is it that we're being asked to sacrifice and take responsibility? Where it is that we could be more ourselves, and where is it that it feels uncomfortable? How is that practically lived? Well, that is going to be about your own individual journey. But what I like to say, and what I really believe, is the love and wisdom are always the answer, because that is whom it is we are. And so my hope, and especially with a square, there tends to be work that is asked of us. We're tapping into a deeper motivation. And my hope, of course, is that we hold love and wisdom as the guiding principles, the higher principles, the principles that unite us, and the principles also that fuel our own understanding of ourselves as individuals. Because I think that'll be part of what helps us to navigate this time and use it as a lift as we move in a more empowered direction. What I love about this transit for us, well, whoa, we spoke about a whole lot of things, right? But of course, I'm going to say that beautiful, great conjunction of Saturn and Jupiter. I do think that that is not only the highlight point of this larger transit, but it is going to show us how it is that we actually can tap into this time and use it to make our lives better in practical ways. It is going to show us a more expansive vision and a new way of understanding, where it is that in the beginning of the transit, we may see the limits of technology or the limits of interacting and independence. It is going to be new forms of being connected, new forms of technology that are going to begin as we get to the end of 2020. And we still have time left in that larger transit to have something to do with it, to be sure that we're working on it, to make the most of it, and to manifest a better lived experience. It is going to be, as we get to that great conjunction, that new ideas will start to be born. Ideas that have potential to change the world in truly meaningful ways, in ways that honor and acknowledge our inherent need for freedom and independence, and at the same time, the essential characteristic of what it means to be human, which is to be connected to each other. This can be truly beautiful and truly inspiring. When they say we're living in rare times and special times, take that to heart. Know that to be true, and know that you in your life right now, you are a lived expression of that change, of what is new and next. And that is part of the empowerment and the excitement of this time, because it really is such a special time. It's a great time to be alive. Our understanding, our technology, our appreciation of our personal power, it is growing exponentially. It is expanding, just like us and our consciousness. It is a new consciousness that is coming forward now. And my hope is always to be part of a consciousness rooted in love and wisdom. I believe that with all my heart and all my energy as well. And energy, that is going to be really important coming up ahead, as it is right now, today. Well, thank you again for watching. Stay tuned for the previews, and it'll be a great transit. Enjoy.